best-selling author David Gillespie, and I'm so excited because he's written an amazing book and it just really speaks to me. Two books actually, Sweet Poison and The Sweet Poison Quick Plan. And David lost over 40 kilos by following this wonderful new method that abolishes all naughtiness with sugar. Is that correct?
That's right. Well, it eliminates the highly addictive substance from our diet, which is sugar. And it's a very destructive substance. And the first book's about why it's destructive and how the biochemistry works. And the second book's about how to eliminate something from your diet that is in everything.
Okay.
So that makes it a little bit tricky. If a substance is highly addictive and in everything,
definitely.
You need a bit of a plan to get rid of it, and that's what that's about.
Matters. So what did you do to lose the 40 kilos?
Okay, I just stopped eating sugar.
Okay, just cold turkey.
I just cold turkey stopped eating sugar.
And what led you to that point where you just thought you're at that point in life where you thought I've got to kick it?
Well, I didn't suddenly become massively overweight. I spent 40 years getting that fat, and it was just a little bit at a time, you know, a kilo here and a kilo there. And by the time that Lizzie, my wife, was told me that we were about to have twins, which was children number 5 and 6, it struck me that I was barely coping with the 4 kids we had, and I wasn't really the one even looking after them. So adding another 2 babies to that mix seemed to me to be very, very difficult. And I thought, look, I've tried everything. I've tried all the diets. Some of them kind of sort of work for a little while, and some of them, you know, don't work at all. And usually what happens is my willpower gives out.
Yes.
So 2 or 3 or 4 weeks in, depending on the diet, that you're going okay, but it's really hard. And the willpower gives out, and you start eating again, and the weight comes back, usually with interest.
And why do you think that is? Because of the combination of food?
I didn't know why it was, and which is, I thought, look, it can't possibly be the case that, you know, through 99.9% of our evolutionary history, no willpower has been required to keep us at a normal operating weight.
Yes.
And for every other animal and every other species on the planet, no willpower appears to be required. You don't see lions working out at the gym. You don't see, you know, monkeys on diets. Everybody, every animal except us, and the ones
they're
that
lean and healthy, and
well, they're the weight they should be.
Yeah.
And so were we, apparently, until the last 100 years. And so I figured it can't, for something to change in the environment that quickly, there must be something that we're missing about what we're understanding about how our bodies work. So I wanted to look at what the research said about how our bodies metabolize food, how it's used, what it's used for, what we do with it.
Okay.
And that led me inevitably into the biochemical research, which is around how we process carbohydrates. So carbohydrates being breads, pastas, and all sugars.
Yes.
Interesting.
All the white stuff, pretty much.
Oh, pretty much, yeah. But it also all vegetables and all that sort of thing.
I've got here an example of the juice.
So that's water and carbohydrate.
Okay, and pure sugar, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
So how many teaspoons of sugar would be in this glass?
Well, that looks like about 200 mils, so I would say that that's about 20 grams or probably 5 teaspoons of sugar. Okay,
so you wouldn't drink this in the morning for breakfast?
Not at all. I wouldn't drink it ever.
What do you eat?
Well, I'll drink milk and water and most alcohol.
Okay, for breakfast?
Well, maybe not for breakfast, but, you know, so beers, wines, that sort of thing.
Okay, but what do you actually eat for breakfast?
Oh, what I eat for breakfast?
Yes.
Usually Vegemite toast, or bacon and eggs, or whatever I can be bothered making. I usually avoid all breakfast cereals because there are very few that contain reasonable amounts of sugar.
Okay.
And to drink, I'll have a glass of milk.
And haven't they linked a lot of different diseases to sugar consumption? Absolutely.
So the way the sugar works is the sugar is 2 molecules, glucose and fructose. The glucose half we desperately need. Our bodies are engines which run on glucose as fuel, and everything we eat is ultimately converted into glucose because it is our fuel. So no problems with that half of sugar. The other half, fructose, has no purpose at all. It has a purpose for plants in that it tempts animals to eat their fruit and so spread their seed. So it's got a good purpose there. But for humans and the animals eating the fruit, there's no purpose at all. It's metabolized directly to fat.
Okay.
So if you were to drink that glass of orange juice, by the time the last mouthful was going down your throat, the first mouthful would already be circulating in your arteries as fat. Your liver metabolizes fructose directly to fat as the highest priority job it has to do.
Okay.
It's never used for fuel. It is never used for energy. It is directly converted to fat. So
you were saying before a little bit, we were talking before we started about the energy slump. So then what happens usually for most people on this type of diet, people keep eating sugar after sugar after sugar, and they never seem to feel full because they're not satiated. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. What happens is that the fructose, the other thing that the fructose does, besides directly creating fat, is that it appears to disrupt our appetite hormones. So
that's huge.
Now, there are two primary appetite hormones affected by it. Insulin, which is an immediate response hormone. So when we eat a carbohydrate, insulin spikes.
Yes.
And part of that job that insulin does is tell our brain, you've had enough to eat. So when it hits a certain level, our brain knows, okay, we've had enough to eat, there's enough fuel there, we can stop. And then there's a longer term hormone which has a similar effect, which is released by our fat cells called leptin. And so it tells our body most of the time when we've had enough to eat. So it says, okay, look, we've actually got quite a bit of fuel on board here, we don't need to eat, or we don't need to eat as much. Fructose interferes directly with those two hormones, and so they don't work as effectively. We become resistant to the signals that say you've had enough to eat. So if our body is incapable of telling us we've had enough to eat,
you're just going to keep eating.
You keep eating.
Yeah, I mean, look, I used to be, years and years ago, I used to be on a diet that probably was pretty unhealthy. I mean, it was. I used to eat gummy bears and lots of sorbets, and I was on a diet and basically lived on pure sugar.
Yep.
And yeah, I was never really full and always wanting to consume. And I know a lot of people, I watch them now and see what they eat. And it's hard, especially with family members who don't really want to hear from you and when it comes to their dietary habits. But it's quite shocking. Like, I've actually calculated one particular person who'll have, you know, a couple of pieces of toast, her orange juice, a bowl of cereal, and she's sort of eaten what maybe an Ironman training athlete would eat, not doing any movement whatsoever. And if I consumed that amount of sugar every day, I swear to you, I would gain at least 10 to 12 kilos within probably a 6-month period of time.
The average person in Australia today, and this is an average, mind you, this is not the peak, this is just the average person, is consuming about 1.1 kilos of sugar a week.
That's shocking.
And most people will say, well, you look, maybe they are eating that, but it sure isn't me, because I don't put sugar in my tea or my coffee, I don't eat sweets, I don't drink soft drinks. But you don't need to do any of those things to eat a large amount of sugar. If you have a Heart Foundation approved breakfast cereal like Just Right, and a glass of that orange juice every morning for breakfast, you'd say to yourself, according to the existing health messages, you're doing everything right. Heart Foundation approved cereal, glass of juice, what more could you ask? That alone, by the end of a week, will have consumed 440 grams of sugar. So that's before you push back from the breakfast table. It's before you go near a Mars bar or a Coke.
Yes.
It's before you touch anything else. You're already up nudging half a kilo of sugar a week.
Yeah, and that would probably be the average person in Australia.
It is the average.
Probably a lot of American people as well.
Yeah.
They're probably worse. Look, I'd love to keep talking, so this is awesome, and we'll go to stage 2 in a moment. But I'll just mention the book again. It's the Sweet Poison and the Sweet Poison Quick Plan, and you can go to sweetpoison.com.au. Thank you, David. You've been watching Ingrid Arna at Bodylove at mybodylove.com. If you have any comments, please make sure to post them at the bottom of the page, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Imagine all the girls